She was the last person anyone expected to save a flight, just a woman in seat 12A, fast asleep beneath the dim cabin lights. But over the Arctic Circle, under the glow of the northern lights, her secret would decide if 152 souls lived or vanished into a storm no pilot wanted to face. The cabin was quiet, almost unnervingly so. Flight 762 had lifted off from New York just after midnight, bound for Anchorage, Alaska, a long, cold trek across the top of the world. The Airbus A320neo hummed steadily at 35,000 feet, its engines a constant reassurance to the tired travelers on board. Sound off. Soldier, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city and country in the comments so we know how far this unit reaches. And don't forget to hit subscribe and stand with the battalion for more missions. Most of the passengers were families heading home after the holidays, scientists returning from conferences, and a scattering of veterans hitching rides north. They filled the narrow rows with hushed conversations and glowing screens. Flight attendants whispered as they moved down the aisle, collecting empty cups, tucking blankets over drowsy children. And then there was her. Aria Kessler, to the untrained eye. She was just another exhausted professional hooded sweatshirt, dark jeans, earbuds in place, fragile in the soft yellow glow, cheek pressed to the window as the world outside disappeared into snow clouds. Nobody noticed how her breathing never settled into true sleep. Nobody guessed she carried 9,200 hours of flight time in her logbook, or that her call sign in another life had been Raven 6. They couldn't know the irony that the woman they dismissed as a harmless stranger had once flown hulking C-17 Globemasters into combat zones, landing on dirt strips in Afghanistan and ice fields in Greenland. She had carried platoons, supplies, and the weight of decisions no one should bear. Tonight, though, she wasn't a soldier or a pilot. She was trying to disappear, no uniform, no badge, just another nameless traveler chasing a few hours of quiet before her own memories caught up. But fate doesn't honor anonymity. Not when the storm outside was sharpening its claws, above northern Canada. The weather was shifting faster than forecast. A polar jet stream collided with a sudden Arctic supercell, spawning turbulence strong enough to tear metal in the cockpit. The radar was already painting swaths of red and yellow, but the passengers didn't know. To them, it was still just another night flight. Only Aria stirred faintly in her seat, some buried instinct twitching as the A320 shuddered against the first edge of the jet stream. Her eyelids fluttered. But she didn't wake, not yet. In the cockpit, Commander Blake Harlow rubbed his chest as a flicker of pain spread down his arm. His first officer, Lieutenant Eva Monroe, glanced at him with concern. He waved her off with a strained smile. For now, Aria Kessler slept. But the storm and the man at the controls were about to force her secret into the open. The hum of the A320neo was steady. But inside the cockpit, silence pressed heavier than the night. Commander Blake Harlow sat in the left seat, his eyes scanning the weather radar as if sheer focus could force the screen to improve. A wall of red and yellow loomed across their route, a polar supercell, jagged with turbulence and streaked with lightning. "Looks rough," Lieutenant Eva Monroe murmured, her voice careful. At 29, with just under 3,000 hours, she had skill but not scars. This was her first winter crossing the polar jet stream as the pilot flying. Harlow forced a chuckle, though his hand rubbed absently at his chest. "We'll thread it," he said, like he'd said 100 times before. But the burn in his sternum was sharper now, spreading down his arm in a way he could no longer ignore. Eva adjusted the heading by 2 degrees, eyes flicking between instruments. Commander, your color's off. You feeling okay? I'm fine. Harlow lied, forcing his hand away from his chest. He had been hiding these symptoms for weeks. A doctor would mean grounding. Grounding meant losing the only thing that still gave his life meaning. He wasn't ready to be benched, not after 22 years in the air. The plane jolted, a ripple of turbulence washing through the fuselage. Out in the cabin, passengers stirred, a few heads lifting, then settling again. None of them knew that the man holding their fate in his hands was already on the edge of collapse. Eva's gaze flicked to him again. The captain's hand trembled on the throttle. Sweat glistened at his temple. Her gut twisted. She opened her mouth to say something when the worst happened. Harlow sucked in a ragged breath. His face drained of color. Then his body slumped violently forward, shoulder against the yoke, sending the jet dipping before Eva wrenched control. Commander Blake. Her voice cracked, but her hands moved with practiced speed. She shoved him back into his seat, pressed autopilot, and keyed the intercom. Mayday, Mayday Seattle Center. This is Flight 762 pilot incapacitation. Captain Harlow is unresponsive. I am assuming command. Static hissed through her headset. The Aurora storm above them was chewing at their comms, scrambling radio waves with pulses of green fire. Eva's chest tightened. Alone. She was suddenly responsible for 152 lives, flying blind into weather she'd never faced before. And the storm was still growing, in the cabin. Aria Kessler stirred in her sleep, a twitch, then a frown, as the subtle vibrations of a machine under duress reached the instincts of a soldier who'd tried to bury them. She didn't wake yet. Not yet. But the plane's fate was sliding fast toward disaster. And that's when the flight attendant decided to make the announcement. Chief Attendant Carla Reeves had seen turbulence, fires in the galley, even a medical emergency or two, but never this. Never the captain unconscious, a storm raging, and a first officer's voice trembling through the interphone. We need another pilot, Eva said. Breathless. Anyone with advanced training? I can't. She caught herself, steadied her tone. I can't do this alone. Carla's throat was dry as she returned to the cabin. How do you ask 100 strangers if any of them can fly an airliner through hell? She gripped the handset, forced calm into her voice, and spoke. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a medical emergency in the cockpit. Our captain is incapacitated. Our first officer is flying the aircraft. But due to severe weather, we are requesting assistance from any qualified pilots on board. If you are a commercial pilot, military aviator, or flight instructor, please press your call button immediately. The words cut through the quiet cabin like a blade. Conversations froze. Heads turned. For a heartbeat. No one moved. Then a man in row 10 sprang up, fumbling with his seatbelt. I can help, he called, voice high with adrenaline. He was tall, confident-looking, mid-40s in a business suit. I've flown before Cessnas. Small twins. I can handle it. Carla's relief lasted 2 seconds. The man's hands shook as he straightened his tie. He shoved past passengers, nerves spilling into arrogance. Cockpits this way. Yes, but Carla tried to stop him, but desperation made her hesitate. Maybe he was all they had. The man strode forward, passengers whispering nervously as he passed. In 12A. Aria Kessler blinked awake. The words had reached her subconscious, captain incapacitated. She sat upright, instincts snapping into place. She scanned the aisle just in time to see the volunteer reach the cockpit. A civilian, straining with bravado, already fumbling with the hatch. She knew the type. The kind who panicked when the sky turned dark. The kind who'd kill everyone aboard by meaning well. Inside the cockpit. Eva glanced at him, eyes wide. What's your type rating? Type I've got hours on a Cessna 172. Little different. But flying's flying. Right, Aria was on her feet before he could touch the controls. The blanket fell from her shoulders, revealing the calm posture of someone used to command. She moved down the aisle. Steady. Purposeful. Carla caught her eye, startled by the sudden authority in the woman's bearing. "Are you?" "Yes," Aria said, voice low but unshakable. "I'm a pilot. Commercial and military, 9,000 hours. Qualified on heavy transports and this aircraft class. Step aside." Carla's breath caught, relief and disbelief colliding. The faux volunteer froze, pale now under his bravado. And for the first time, Eva Monroe let out a shuddering breath of hope. But outside, the Aurora storm howled, battering the A320 with winds that could split wings. Aria hadn't even touched the controls yet, and already, the storm was demanding its price. The real test hadn't even begun. The cockpit was no longer a sanctuary of order. It was a cage rattling under the weight of the northern sky. Aria Kessler strapped into the jump seat, her eyes sweeping the panels in seconds. Years of training had drilled her to absorb chaos and spit it back out as clarity. "Captain's still breathing," Eva Monroe said, knuckles white on the controls. "Pulse is weak, but I can't focus on the jet." Aria cut in. "He's stable enough. We'll keep him alive by keeping this bird alive." Outside, emerald curtains of aurora shimmered, but beauty masked violence. A polar supercell churned across their flight path, winds shrieking like artillery. The weather radar painted doom thick bands of red and black, turbulence warnings flashing. The fuselage shuddered. Bins popped overhead. Screams rippled through the cabin before dying into stunned silence. Eva fought the yoke, her breathing ragged. "Controls are heavy. I'm losing her in the downdraft. Don't fight it." Aria snapped. "You fight. You brake. Feel it. Ride the drop. Then lift." The jet plunged again, a gut-wrenching freefall that had passengers gripping seats, prayers spilling into the air. Eva's eyes darted to Aria, panic threatening. Aria leaned closer, voice low and steady, anchoring her. "Trust me. Let it breathe. Aircraft want to fly. Don't choke it." Lightning flashed, illuminating Blake Harlow's slumped form in the captain's seat, his oxygen mask dangling, chest rising shallowly. The sight hardened Aria's tone. "You're not alone, Lieutenant. I've flown through worse dust storms in Kandahar, ice storms in Greenland. Listen to me and we'll get them home." The storm roared. Icing warnings chimed. Engine 2 sputtered, coughing flame before dying. A red master caution lit the cockpit. "Engine 2 failure!" Eva shouted. "Feather it! Crossfeed to 1!" Aria's hands moved swift, shutting valves, adjusting thrust. "We'll fly single engine. Neo can handle it." The aircraft yawed hard to the left, alarms blaring. Aria grabbed the trim, stabilizing. "Good. Now hold heading 180. South of the cell, there's a gap." Static swallowed their comms. Anchorage Tower, Flight 762 declaring emergency, nothing but crackle. Aurora interference jammed every channel. They were alone. 20 minutes stretched like 20 years. The A320 bucked and rolled, passengers crying out, trays clattering, in the galley. Carla Reeves braced herself, whispering silent prayers. The man who had tried to bluff his way into the cockpit sat frozen in shame, realizing he'd nearly doomed them all. Aria's voice never broke. Every command was crisp. Add thrust. Ease nose down. Don't overcorrect. Slowly. Painfully. They carved a path along the storm's ragged edge. Sweat slicked Eva's face, but her hands steadied. She matched Aria's cadence, her panic thinning into precision. Finally, the radar flickered with promise. Patches of green. Then blue, clearer skies ahead. Eva exhaled shakily. "We're through." "Not yet," Aria said, jaw set. "Look." She pointed at the screen. Anchorage was still an hour away. Runway slicked with ice. Crosswinds building. The storm was behind them. But the landing would decide everything. And this time, there would be no second chances. The northern horizon glowed faintly with Anchorage's lights, blurred by sheets of snow whipping across the tarmac. The storm had weakened, but the blizzard still waited. A final gauntlet. Anchorage Tower. Flight 762. Eva tried again. This time, a voice crackled through. Faint but steady Flight 762 radar contact. Cleared ILS approach runway 34. Winds 20 knots cross. Runway contaminated with ice. Eva's lips parted. Crosswind. On ice. Aria nodded grimly. We've done worse. They began descent. At 10,000 feet, the city flickered below, ringed by mountains, black shadows against the dim aurora. Eva followed Aria's calm instructions, configuring flaps, checking hydraulics, running the approach checklist as if her life depended on it, because it did. In the cabin, Carla Reeves secured every loose strap, whispering to terrified passengers. Children clutched parents. Veterans stared grimly, recognizing the hush before impact. Phones recorded shaky farewells. At 2,000 feet, turbulence smacked the jet sideways. Eva fought the yoke, teeth clenched, crosswind correction too strong. Ease it, Aria coached. Don't muscle it, dance with it. Snow streaked the windshield. The runway lights stretched ahead. A slick silver blade. 500 feet, Eva called out. Her voice wavered. You've got this, Aria said, her hand hovering near the throttle but not touching. She wasn't here to take over. She was here to make Eva into what she had always feared she wasn't enough. The wheels kissed ice with a scream, sliding sideways. Reverse thrust roared, brakes shuddered. For an instant, the aircraft skated uncontrolled. Gasps erupted through the cabin. Then the tires bit, traction gripping, slowing them down. Emergency vehicles chased alongside, sirens wailing. They were down, alive. Eva slumped forward, shaking. I thought we were finished. Aria's voice was steady, almost gentle. That's the thing about flying through hell. If you're still breathing, you're not finished. Paramedics rushed the cockpit, lifting Harlow onto a stretcher. His pulse was faint but alive. Passengers filed out, eyes wide, whispering. The man from row 10 humbled, muttered. I thought you were just asleep. That was the point, Aria said softly. Carla pressed a hot coffee into her hand. You saved us, all of us. Aria looked out the frost-rimmed window, dawn glowing pale over Alaskan mountains. No, she said. We saved each other. She slipped into the stream of passengers. No applause, no spotlight, just another traveler vanishing into the cold Anchorage morning. But phones were already buzzing, whispers turning into headlines, the sleeping stranger in 12A. And though Aria never sought legend, legends had a way of finding those who ran from them. They walked away alive. But stories like this remind us how fragile every breath can be. Subscribe now and stand with us because more missions are waiting.